Of course I think we can win, and I'm fighting every single day to win.
We've now put forward a plan that... Is that bird worrying you?
Yeah. They're afraid of us. They can see that our movement is growing.
Well, you're not going to have a sense in the parliament.
Let there be 1,000 lessons learned as far as I'm concerned.
This is the 4ZZZ Break the Election podcast for the Queensland state election in 2024. Hello and welcome to the 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast 2 days following the Queensland state election for 2024. My name's Alexis, I'm the news coordinator here at 4ZZZ. Joining us today are...
Sarah, Ella,
Sakura,
who are from our 4ZZZ newsroom. Hello everyone, how are we?
Good.
How are we feeling after the election?
Interesting.
In this podcast, we're going to bring you up to date on the election and break down all the things that are being said and why. Sarah, how about you start us off today?
David Crisafulli has led the Liberal National Party to a majority government in the next Queensland Parliament. Current projections for seat results stand at LNP with 53 seats, ALP with 34 seats, Katter Australia Party with 4 seats, the Greens with 1 seat, and Sandy Bolton retained her seat as an independent. Mr Crisafulli said he will be looking to implement his youth crime agenda as a priority, and in the next few weeks of sittings in the Queensland Parliament.
Certainly not an unexpected result. Certainly the LNP were looking good all the way through the election, although maybe a slight bit disappointing considering where they started. Okay, what are your thoughts on an elected LNP government at this stage? What are you expecting to see?
It'll be a change for sure, especially after a decade of having Labor in power.
Yeah, so that's 35 years of Labor with only 6 years of punctuation. It's pretty significant.
Yeah, the focus on youth crime will be interesting to see how it does rolling out, because that obviously hasn't been a main focus of Labor in past years.
Well, it has been a little bit this time around, but 100 days of youth crime issues will be discussed in a very short amount of time, and there's probably quite a few opinions on that one. Also on that agenda are going to be things like health reporting might turn up pretty quickly, I would imagine.
Yeah, my dad's been pretty concerned. He works in the healthcare sector and he's had his own thoughts on different things.
I'm sure he has, but we better not reveal those on here.
No thoughts.
Anything else? How does everyone feel about their reproductive rights today, for example?
I don't believe anything will change because I don't think it will get passed in government, but we won't know, obviously, until it happens.
I'm not expecting that anything will change right away, but watch this space is maybe how I describe it at the moment. Sakura, what's happening for the Labor opposition now?
So Stephen Miles is expected to continue as leader of the Labor Party following the party's loss over the week, and both Shannon Fetterman and Cameron Dick, the most likely rivals to Mr Miles, have indicated that they would support him retaining the leadership and to serve as opposition leader.
Interesting. So what do we think about Stephen Miles now that he is the opposition leader in Queensland? Do we think he performed reasonably well on the campaign trail?
Yeah, I truly feel like he did his best. Especially, I feel like a lot of us younger people would have definitely seen his social media marketing. I would give him props to the social media marketing. It was very entertaining.
Yeah, it definitely was a different approach for a politician. Pointed himself out as a very normal, down-to-earth sort of guy, which is something the ALP desperately needed.
It was funny seeing on the news last night Crisafulli, like, in his workout gear, because obviously Stephen Miles has been doing a lot of, like, workout videos.
The bench press.
Yeah, and then, so I saw Crisafulli trying to do the same. It just didn't feel right. I was trying to catch
David
up.
Crisafulli, you're Premier of Queensland now, but can you bench press 100? So, performed well. That's probably why he's sticking on.
Yeah, I think he's taken the defeat in stride as much as you can, trying not to...
like conservative parts of the media have been making a big deal out of the conceding defeat thing, but realistically this isn't much to talk about here. I mean, come on, you just lost being Premier of Queensland. It's very likely in your lifetime you'll only get maybe 1 or 2 shots at that. So maybe let people grieve a little bit.
I think he was really well liked by a lot of people, especially with his social media campaign was absolutely amazing.
Yeah, expect that Labor will have a lot to say over the next few months, up to the halfway point. If there's going to be a change of leadership, it'll probably be somewhere in the middle of the term. So 2026, we'll probably be thinking about that again. But for now, Stephen Miles, opposition leader. Mm-hmm. Okay, Ella, what's in story 3?
The minor parties in Queensland have experienced mixed results over the weekend, with Katter's Australia Party solidifying their position on the crossbench, while the Greens suffered losses in support in the inner city that cost them a seat. The Katter Party was re-elected its members in Treagar, Hill and Hinchinbrook, and are on track to win the seat of Marani with One Nation defector Stephen Andrew. KAP leader Robbie Katter praised his candidates for their work, but has accused the LNP of running a dirty campaign against them in the north. Meanwhile, the Greens fell behind in all of their prospective target seats in inner city Brisbane, including McConnell and Cooper, will struggle to retain Maiwar with Michael Berkman and have appeared to have lost South Brisbane, ending the political career of Amy McMahon in a single term, the first incumbent loss for the Greens in their history.
So let's start with the Katters first. They're looking pretty strong in North Queensland.
Yeah.
Maybe not as strong as they would otherwise like. They had prospects in Townsville, Thuringowa and Townsville itself. But they might yet win in Mundingborough. So this is still a strange territory where we might have 5 Katter MPs in Parliament for 2% of the statewide vote.
And one Green candidate.
Meanwhile, the Greens are polling at 9.5 and are going to win 1.
Yeah.
Oh, that says a lot.
I think realistically the Katters have run a very smart campaign for their area and have done a lot to reinforce the values of Northern Queensland, out there Northern Queensland electorates. Slightly different story for the Greens in inner city Brisbane, where they have found themselves in a bit of a bind on housing, it would seem, where they've been pushing for more housing to be built, but are being squeezed on how that housing will be delivered. Certainly, people who usually vote Green, who are landlords, are feeling a little bit despondent about the way that's being portrayed. And we're also seeing that the young vote is not as much of a lock for the Greens as the Greens would otherwise like. That said, they returned exactly the same amount of the vote share from the last election and are still going to lose a seat. It's pretty serious. What are our thoughts on that? Are the Greens losing touch a little bit?
Definitely. I feel like the Katter Party was focusing on North Queensland and they've related to them really well, whereas Greens aren't relating to their area as well. They've lost the reality of what it's like to relate to normal everyday people and the actual problems in the area.
Interesting.
I know, I guess their focus was a lot of bashing Stephen Miles and bashing Christopher Foley, which is obviously fair enough political party standards, but I definitely didn't see as much focused on the tangible changes that they were going to make, and they're trying to make them, but yeah.
If I was going to note one thing about the ALP campaign in regards to the Greens, they were very good at ignoring Greens' rhetoric but picking up Greens' policies and running with them, which sort of left the Greens with not a lot to talk about, and it just turned the narrative on where the Greens were.
I just feel like Australia always has been like, we've functioned as a two-party system. I don't expect that to change anytime soon. We'll probably still stay as a two-party system for a while.
I think you might be right. The prospects for the Greens aren't that good, and their inevitable march to government, as they would say it, is just not as clear today as it was before this election started. Yeah. And that's all we have for 4ZZZ Breaks the Election podcast today. For more updates, you can find us on 4ZZZ in our morning bulletins, Brisbane Line on Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at midday, and make sure to catch the Pineapple Rebellion at 9am on Friday for our final rundown of the state election results. If you want to support the project, subscribe to 4ZZZ at 4ZZZ.org.au/support. This is the last podcast in this series for the Queensland state election. We will be back next year to break the federal election in 2025. Thanks for joining us during this podcast, and we will see you next year. Goodbye!